Buzz Lightyear is the GOAT. Toy Story proved that much 27 years ago, but with Pixar's Lightyear finally hitting the big screen, we're reminded of that fact yet again. And in the words of Pixar, the movie truly is unlike any other. So let's celebrate this amazing movie by taking a sneak peek behind the scenes of this lovable astronaut's story and see how the artists at Disney brought Lightyear to life. First came the character, with the voice of Chris Evans. Did you know that this is Chris's first major animated film? Yeah, we were surprised too, but we'll get to that bit later. For now, let's talk about how this movie has been 20 years in the making. That's right, director and writer Angus MacLane started working on this movie's story right after the release of Toy Story 2. He wanted to create a compelling character with a story of his own, because of course, the Buzz in this movie isn't the same Buzz we saw in Toy Story. And because this movie follows the story of the human Buzz, he wanted to give it an angle that showed us a real, more emotional journey of a guy who inspired Andy so much that he demanded to get his action figure for his toy collection. Then came his hand. One of the biggest challenges MacLane had was the depiction of Lightyear. Depicting an already well-loved character cannot be easy, but with his attention to detail and a great art team, MacLane gave us a movie that's both expressive and engaging. Take his obsession with Lightyear's hands, for example. According to him, even the way the character presses buttons or holds his weapons tells a story about the character's personality. It shows his agitation or comfort with the machines involved. This is why the crew placed a lot of importance on his hand movements and overall demeanor. But the hand's just one part of the whole character. You've got to remember that these guys were creating a human Buzz, so his mannerisms and actions obviously couldn't resemble that of a toy. So what did they do? They added more details that made Buzz look more human. The hand we've already told you about, but they also focused a lot on his chin to make it look human. And by a lot, we mean a lot. Just look at all the different prototypes they had for his face. And then there's Buzz's snood. You know, the protective clothing that covered his head in his astronaut uniform. Human Buzz couldn't keep wearing it all the time, right? So they replaced the snood with hair. We're not complaining. It does look amazing. They even spent a lot of time designing his belt. Yeah, the artists at Disney worked super hard making it look as realistic as they could, down to the ribbing on its buckle. Of course, we already knew the kind of dedication Pixar puts into its projects, but getting to know these tiny details makes it all the more special for us fans, especially when you realize that the orange suit that Buzz wore on his journey, it's actually an homage to the very first concept of his character in Toy Story, named Lunar Larry. And while we love this little Easter egg, we're kind of thankful they didn't actually name the guy Lunar Larry. It really doesn't sound as cool as Lightyear, does it? Let's also talk about his companion. Buzz doesn't lack companions when it comes to his missions, but we're about to discuss the cutest one from the movie. You guessed it right, it's Socks. The Star Command gives Buzz this unaging robot cat as something or someone to talk to during his expedition. Because director MacLane also happens to be a huge Star Wars fan, his creation of Socks is a callback to characters like R2-D2, Baby Yoda, and Chewie. Basically a cute protagonist sidekick who could be the main character's constant through his journey. And he succeeded alright. The cat's our favorite from the movie, aside from Buzz of course. And then there's the animation. Did you know Korean animators Chun Sung-uk and Lee Chae-yeon actually animated part of this movie at home? That's correct, thanks to the pandemic. You remember the one, right? But another super cool thing about the animation of the movie is its cinematic feel. It's deliberate, of course, done so with the vision to create a feeling of watching a sci-fi movie, similar to a Steven Spielberg one. But how do you animate a movie with a real-life sci-fi feel to it? In Angus MacLane's world, you do it with Lego. That's right. In order to achieve the chunky, cinematic feel of the movie, the director would often create spaceship models from Lego, so his team could feel it up in real life before rendering a digital version of the design. Super cool, right? Lightyear also happens to be the first Pixar movie to be shot in IMAX, with scene references coming in from movies like Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol. Super cool, right? In a way, Buzz really does resemble Ethan Hunt in his heroic nature. And talking about heroes, how could we forget that it was Captain America who voiced Buzz? Just that fact alone makes him a hero in our world. To Chris Evans and beyond. We've already told you how Lightyear is Chris Evans' first foray into Disney's animated universe, right? Turns out, this first-time experience was actually pretty intimidating for him. Surprising, isn't it? Knowing Buzz intimidated Captain America? But it just adds further to Chris's charisma. We found it really interesting to find out that he was a huge Buzz Lightyear fan and actually took a lot of inspiration from his character growing up. This is why when it comes to him saying the iconic "to infinity and beyond" dialogue, he got super nervous. And what does Chris Evans do when he's nervous? He tap dances. Funny and endearing. Exactly the kind of info we'd expect from our favorite superhero. But Chris wasn't the only Buzz fanboy in the cast. Even Uzo Aduba, who plays Alicia Hawthorne, had a moment when it came to the Infinity dialogue. Guess Buzz with Tim Allen did leave a huge impact on their fans. Speaking of Tim Allen, you must be thinking, why didn't he get to voice Buzz in this movie? He was the iconic voice behind the toy in the previous movies after all. But that's exactly the reason why. Tim was the voice of the toy Buzz. They couldn't use the same voice for human Buzz. And honestly, we're not complaining about their choices. Some real science was also involved. The key plotline in Lightyear is the time dilation he experiences when attempting to escape the planet he's stuck on. But Pixar didn't make up that concept. To make sure their attention to detail was impeccable, the creators of the movie went to NASA to make sure they knew all there was about time dilation and the history and future of space travel. Talk about dedication. Astronaut Tom Marshburn played a huge role in helping the Lightyear crew learn about spacesuit construction, vehicles, aircraft, and more. They even shared a lot of gritty details about buttons, knobs, and dials of spaceships to make sure the cockpit of Buzz's ship would look and feel realistic. The movie's tailoring and sim supervisor also shared that the suits created for Buzz have also been inspired by NASA spacesuits, and that his final suit, the version of which the toy wears, is his extravehicular activity, or EVA, which Pixar had to push a lot of boundaries of graphics and hard surface modeling to create. And are you ready for a fun fact? NASA's team even took one of Pixar's research trip photos to the International Space Station. So in a way, Buzz Lightyear really does exist in outer space. That's so cool. Sure, there were tossed scenes. A movie can't exist without its outtakes, and Lightyear has its fair share of those. The crew animated a lot of scenes, some that they ended up tossing out, either because they didn't fit the plot or because they were too unreal to happen. Of course, some of these were super hard for them to let go of, but you gotta do what you gotta do to make a movie great, right? And while those scenes didn't make it to the final cut of the movie, one thing's for sure, with the attention to detail these guys put into the story, to the amazing ensemble cast, the movie really ended up being perfect. So, is there going to be a sequel? The possibilities are endless, but unfortunately, because the movie didn't perform as well as expected at the box office, Pixar is highly unlikely to greenlight a sequel. But hey, they did capitalize on the Toy Story movies for years, even if a couple of them were almost a decade apart, all because of the fan following of the movies. And considering how Buzz also has a similar fan base, we can hope for Lightyear 2 happening soon. Even McClane has mentioned the open-ended climax of the movie hinting at a second installment, or even a trilogy. So does this mean we can keep our fingers crossed? We sure hope so. That's a wrap for this video. Which part of the Lightyear movie did you like best? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.